AITA for telling my wife that if she wants to act like a single mom, she can be one. We've been married for 6 years, have 2 kids, ages 4 and 2, and until recently, I thought we had a decent partnership. I work full-time as a software engineer. She's a stay-at-home mom. It was a mutual decision after our second child was born because daycare costs were outrageous and her job didn't pay much. I've always respected her for staying home. I've never considered her a non-working partner. Raising 2 toddlers is no joke. But over the last year, things have been shifting. She's joined a few local mom groups and started spending a lot of time with them. That's great. She deserves a social life, but started escalating. These women call themselves hot mess moms, and they wear it like a badge of honor. They day drink while their kids run around unsupervised, complain about their husbands like it's a sport, and post TikToks about how they do it all while their lazy partners just work one job. I brush it off at first. Everyone needs to vent. But then my wife started repeating those same phrases. I do everything around here. You get to clock out at 5. I'm working 24/7. I may not earn money, but I'm doing the real labor. Okay, sure. But the thing is, I don't just clock out at 5. I come home, take the kids so she can decompress, cook dinner 3 to 4 times a week, clean the kitchen every night, do the grocery shopping every Sunday, and handle all the finances. I get up with the kids every Saturday morning so she can sleep in. I don't go out with friends. I don't play video games. I barely have any hobbies left. My whole life is work and family, and I've never once complained. Last month was my breaking point. She went on a momcation with 2 of her friends, 4 nights in Vegas. I supported it. I took PTO to be with the kids. I encouraged her to relax and have fun. She came back with new tattoos, a $600 purse, and a head full of TikTok advice about prioritizing your own joy. Cool. But then she announced she was starting a momfluencer Instagram account and will be focusing on content creation. I said, okay, if that makes her happy, I'll support her. But then it was like the household just stopped being her responsibility. She started spending hours filming herself cleaning, which she wasn't actually doing, taking the kids to stage photo shoots while dressed to the nines, and then dumping them on me the minute I walked through the door. When I asked if she could please at least handle dinner on the nights I worked late, she told me I was expecting too much and minimizing her emotional labor. Last week, she posted a reel that made me see red. It was one of those viral day in the life of a stay-at-home mom clips, and it was all staged misery, cold coffee, screaming kids, a shot of my work bag like it was a villain. She captioned it with, "Some days I wonder if I'm a married single mom." That hit a nerve. That night, I told her that if she really sees herself as a single mom, maybe we should explore that option. That I'm not going to be painted as some absent deadbeat while I'm busting my ass for this family. That I'm happy to split custody 50-50 and pay support if it means she can fully experience what being a single mom actually looks like. She called me an asterisk hole. Said I was threatening divorce over a harmless joke. I told her it stopped being harmless when she built a platform based on trashing me and painting herself as some oppressed domestic goddess while I do everything I can to support her. She stormed out and stayed with one of her mom group friends for 2 nights. Her Instagram is still up. The reel is still there. And now she's telling everyone that I gave her an ultimatum and am trying to punish her for having an identity outside of being a wife. I honestly didn't mean it as an ultimatum. I meant it as, stop acting like you're in this alone when you're not. If you want to be a single mom, we can make it real. I'm tired of being the villain in her social media story while she pretends I'm just background noise. But now even some of our friends are saying I overreacted, that she's just trying to find herself, and I'm being controlling. I don't feel like I'm controlling at all. I've supported everything she wanted to do. I just don't want to be dragged online or turned into content so she can feel empowered. So, AITA, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law and her kids move into our new house, even though she's family and has nowhere else to go. My wife and I, both 34, just bought our dream home after 10 years of saving, sacrificing, and living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with our 2 dogs and no real privacy. We both work full-time. I'm in IT, she's a nurse, and we don't have kids by choice. That's important to the story. The house is modest compared to most people's dream home standards, just a 3-bedroom ranch with a finished basement and a yard. But to us, it's everything. It's in a quiet neighborhood, has enough space for a home office and a guest room, and a huge basement that we want to turn into a game/media room. We closed in August and moved in mid-September. This house is our fresh start. Enter my sister-in-law, Tina, 36, who has 3 kids, 12M, 9F, 6M, and a long, chaotic history of bad decisions. She's been in and out of relationships, jobs, apartments, you name it. She's the type of person who jumps into commitments she can't handle and then calls family to bail her out when things crash. My wife and I have already lent her money, never repaid, co-signed on a car, repossessed, and let her crash on our couch twice in the last 5 years. Each time was supposed to be just a few weeks and turned into months of stress, drama, and unpaid bills. Tina called us in early September, before we even finished unpacking, saying she had been evicted again, this time because her ex-boyfriend stopped paying rent and bailed. She and the kids were staying with a friend on a couch and didn't know where else to go. She started hinting that our new place had plenty of space and how family sticks together. My wife, to her credit, told her immediately that we weren't in a position to take anyone in. We're finally trying to enjoy peace and have our own lives. Tina didn't take that well. She showed up at our house one morning 2 weeks ago with her 3 kids and 4 garbage bags of stuff in the back of a borrowed van. No warning, no phone call, nothing. I was home alone because my wife was working a double shift, and I told her flat out that she couldn't stay here. She started crying, saying the kids needed somewhere stable and that we have a whole house now. I told her I was sorry, but that we had made it clear before. This wasn't an option. She screamed at me in front of the kids, calling me a cold, selfish hole who doesn't care about family. I told her that I cared, which is why I wasn't going to enable her pattern of bad choices anymore. I offered to pay for a motel for a few nights while she figured things out. She refused and drove off in tears. Since then, all hell has broken loose. My mother-in-law, who has always enabled Tina, started blowing up my wife's phone about how I turned away children and that I should be ashamed. My wife is caught in the middle. She supports me, says she agrees with our decision, but she also feels guilty because it's her sister and she hates seeing the kids in such a mess. I reminded her that we tried to help before and were used and taken for granted. This was supposed to be our fresh start, and we didn't owe anyone our space, peace, or mental health. She agreed, but she's been distant ever since. Yesterday, Tina posted a long rant on Facebook, basically saying we were heartless people who abandoned 3 innocent kids for the sake of having a game room. She didn't use our names, but it was obvious to anyone who knows us. Several of her friends, and even a couple of extended family members, messaged me saying I should do the right thing and open our home to family in need. I feel like I'm living in a bizarre guilt trip play where every actor thinks the moral thing is to sacrifice your own happiness so someone else can continue avoiding consequences. Here's where I might be the asshole. The kids didn't do anything wrong. I know they're just collateral damage in their mom's chaotic life, and maybe I should have made an exception for them. Maybe I should have let them stay temporarily and found some middle ground. But at the same time, I feel like I've been burned enough. Every temporary stay has turned into a nightmare. Tina doesn't parent. She lets the kids run wild. They broke our TV the last time they stayed with us and spilled juice all over the couch. She didn't offer to replace anything. They scream at all hours, fight constantly, and don't respect boundaries. Tina expects everyone to cater to her and never apologizes for the stress she causes. And I don't want to become the fallback plan every time her life implodes. Still, I can't shake the guilt. I don't want to punish the kids for their mother's behavior. But is it fair to ask us to give up our peace and space when we worked so hard to get here, just because their mom keeps messing up? So, AITA for refusing to let them move in, even if it means 3 kids are stuck in a bad situation. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially even though I make six figures? I, 32M, have one sibling, my sister Emily, 34F. We were raised by a single mom who worked two jobs to keep us afloat. Emily and I were close growing up, but our paths in life diverged a lot once we became adults. I was always more academic, got a scholarship to a good university, and now work as a software engineer for a large company. I make a good income, low six figures. I live pretty frugally, have no debt, and save/invest a lot. I'm not flashy. I drive a 10-year-old car, rent a modest apartment, and cook at home. Emily struggled more in school and got pregnant at 19. She kept the baby and dropped out of college. Her daughter, my niece, is now 15, and Emily has two more kids with her now ex-husband, who is totally absent and pays minimal child support. She works part-time at a daycare, which barely covers her bills. I've helped her out many times over the years. I've paid for car repairs, helped her move twice, bought Christmas gifts for the kids when she couldn't, and even covered rent once when she was about to be evicted. I never asked for anything in return. About a month ago, Emily called me crying. She was behind on rent again, her car needed work, and her electricity bill was overdue. She asked me if I could help her out just one more time. I asked her how much she needed. She said, honestly, about $2,000. That's not nothing to me. Yes, I make good money, but I also have my own life. I'm saving for a house, have an emergency fund, and I don't want to just keep burning money every time she mismanages hers. And I told her exactly that. I said, Em, I love you and the kids, but I've helped so many times. I can't keep doing this. You need a more permanent solution. She got really quiet, then said, so you're seriously going to sit there in your fancy apartment with your six-figure salary and let your sister and your nieces get kicked out onto the street? That stung, but I held my ground. I said, you've had 15 years to figure this out. I'm not your safety net. I'm your brother, not your bank. She hung up on me. Since then, she sent a couple of texts, mostly guilt-trippy stuff like the girls miss their uncle and wish we had family we could count on. I haven't replied. Now here's where I might be the asshole. Our mom called me a few days ago, furious. Emily had apparently told her everything, and Mom went off on me about family loyalty and how if your sister ends up homeless, that's on you. I told her if she was so concerned, she could help Emily out herself. She said she can't. She's on a fixed income and barely gets by. I asked her why Emily doesn't get a full-time job or apply for assistance. Mom said, she's doing her best. You don't know what it's like being a single mother. I said, no, but she chose to have 3 kids she couldn't afford. Mom called me heartless and said I'd changed since I got rich. Now I'm getting texts from cousins and even some of Emily's friends on Facebook. She made a vague post about certain family members turning their backs on a struggling single mom. I've kept quiet, but it's eating at me. Here's what's really bothering me. I could afford to help her. The money wouldn't ruin me. But I'm sick of being her fallback plan. Every time she screws up, she comes running to me. And I feel like helping her just prolongs the cycle. At what point do I draw the line? On the other hand, she is my sister. Those kids are my nieces. I do love them. I don't want them to suffer because of her choices. But does that mean I have to financially support them indefinitely? My girlfriend says I'm doing the right thing and that it's okay to set boundaries, especially after so many years of helping. But I still feel like a jerk every time I picture my nieces sitting in the dark or getting evicted. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to help my sister financially even though I can afford to? AITA for refusing to give up my honeymoon suite for my sister and causing a family meltdown? I, 28F, got married 2 months ago to my husband, Ethan, 30M, after 3 years of dating. We planned a fairly small wedding, around 60 guests, and decided to spend a week at a luxury mountain resort for our honeymoon. It was a splurge, but we saved aggressively to afford the honeymoon suite at this resort. Gorgeous views, private hot tub, the works. It was going to be our one big indulgence before returning to real life. Now, the issue revolves around my sister, Claire, 26F, and her fiancé, Jordan, 27M. Claire and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's been the golden child for as long as I can remember, straight A student, varsity athlete, went to an Ivy League school. I was more average and got used to being compared to her constantly. Our relationship has improved a bit in adulthood, but there's still underlying tension. Claire got engaged just 2 months after Ethan and I did. She immediately started planning a huge 200-person wedding, which she expects my parents to fund. They're not rich, but are dipping into savings to help. There's been a pattern of her copying or one-upping me. When I mentioned our honeymoon destination, she raised an eyebrow and said, "That's cute. Jordan and I were thinking Europe, but that might be relaxing." Fast forward to our wedding day. Everything went well, and that night we drove straight to the resort. On day 2 of our honeymoon, I got a call from my mom. She sounded weird and hesitant. I asked what was wrong, and she said Claire and Jordan had just shown up at the same resort. Without telling me, they booked a last-minute mini-moon because Europe fell through. I was a bit shocked, but figured it was a coincidence. Then came the real kicker. My mom said Claire was very upset because their room wasn't what they expected, and they'd accidentally booked one of the smaller guest suites on the bottom floor. No view, tiny bathroom. Apparently, Claire saw photos I'd posted on my private Instagram, only close friends and family, and realized how luxurious our suite was. My mom said, "She's wondering if you'd consider switching rooms, just for 2 nights, so they can enjoy some of their time here." I honestly thought it was a joke. I asked my mom if she was serious, and she said yes. Claire was crying, saying it was ruining her first romantic getaway, and that it's just a room. My dad also called me later and said it would be a generous gesture and that families should look out for each other. I told both of them absolutely not. We paid for this suite, we planned this for months, and I wasn't going to give it up because my sister failed to plan properly. I said it was wildly inappropriate for her to even ask. The next day, Claire knocked on our door. She looked red-eyed and angry. She said she couldn't believe I was being so selfish and that a real sister would care more about her happiness. I told her to leave. She started crying again and walked off muttering something about how I've always hated seeing her happy. After that, it exploded. My mom texted me saying I'd ruined Claire's mini-moon and that she was now considering going home early because she felt unwanted. My dad asked me to reconsider and said I was escalating the situation. Even a couple of my aunts chimed in with vague Facebook posts about selfish brides. Ethan was furious on my behalf and said we should just block them for the rest of the trip. I didn't go that far, but I muted everyone. Still, when we got back home, the tension hadn't blown over. My mom is civil, but clearly disappointed. Claire hasn't spoken to me at all. My dad keeps sending me articles about grace and generosity in family dynamics. Some friends say I was completely in the right, that this was my honeymoon and my sister was being entitled. Others say that while Claire was out of line, I could have given her the room for a night or two just to keep the peace, and that memories matter more than walls. Now I'm wondering if I let things escalate too much. Maybe I should have just bitten the bullet to avoid all this fallout. But I also feel like caving would have reinforced a lifetime pattern of her getting what she wants at my expense. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to give up my honeymoon suite to my sister and causing a family meltdown. AITA for refusing to let my stepdaughter move back in with us after what she did to my son. I, 38M, have been married to my wife Jenna, 42F, for 6 years. She has a daughter, Riley, 17F, from a previous marriage. I have a son, Noah, 16M, from mine. Jenna and I got together when the kids were around 10 and 9, and we blended our families when we moved in together a year after dating. At first, things were fine. The kids got along okay. Not best friends, but no major issues. Jenna and I worked hard to make things feel fair and balanced. We both have 50-50 custody with our exes and try to coordinate our schedules so the kids were with us at the same time. But everything started to unravel about a year ago. Riley started acting distant with everyone. She got moody, rude, and seemed to go out of her way to antagonize Noah. It started small, snide comments about his clothes or music taste, but escalated over time. Jenna brushed it off as teen girl stuff and told me not to overreact. But Noah was taking it hard. He's a quiet, sensitive kid, very academic, not very social. I could tell it was affecting him, but every time I brought it up, Jenna would say, "They're siblings, they tease each other." Then came the phone incident. Noah had been acting super withdrawn and anxious. I got concerned and eventually convinced him to talk. He confessed that Riley had been going into his room, taking pictures of his private journal. He writes poetry, sometimes about darker emotions, and sharing them in a group chat with her friends. They had been mocking him behind his back for weeks, calling him names like emo loser and little virgin Shakespeare. I was livid. I confronted Riley, who at first denied it. When I showed her the screenshots Noah had taken, he found the group chat open on her laptop when she left it on the dining table. She broke down and admitted it. Her excuse? It was just a joke, and he's so weird, I didn't think he'd care. I told Jenna Riley had to face real consequences. Jenna was horrified at what Riley did, but didn't want to tear the family apart. She wanted to do a group apology, some therapy, and have Riley write a letter of apology to Noah. I wasn't having it. I told her Riley needed to live with her dad for a while. Jenna was furious and said I was overreacting. I disagreed. I told her that Riley violated Noah's privacy, humiliated him in a cruel way, and showed no real remorse. I couldn't have her under the same roof as my son right now. After a huge fight, Jenna reluctantly agreed Riley would stay with her dad for a little while to give Noah space. That was 9 months ago. Since then, things in the house have been better. Noah is healing. He's in a therapy, has joined a creative writing club, and is opening up again. He even made 2 real friends, and they come over sometimes. I cannot overstate how much healthier and happier he seems without Riley around. Jenna, however, has grown increasingly bitter about the arrangement. She visits Riley every weekend and keeps telling me it's time for her to come home. I keep saying no, not until Noah feels safe and ready. Riley sent a handwritten letter to Noah about 2 months ago. It was okay. She said she was sorry and that she didn't realize how much it would hurt him. Noah read it but told me he didn't want her back. He said he didn't trust her and didn't feel safe in his own home when she was here. Last week, Jenna dropped a bomb on me. She said Riley was moving back in next month whether I agreed or not. I told her flat out, if Riley moves back in, Noah and I are moving out. Jenna was shocked and accused me of choosing your son over our family. I replied, I'm choosing to protect my son from someone who hurt him deeply. Now the whole family is involved. Jenna's parents say I'm being cruel and punishing a teenager for a mistake. My own sister says I'm doing the right thing, but even some of my friends think I'm being too rigid, that Riley was young and dumb and should be given another chance. The truth is, I don't hate Riley. I just don't trust her. And more importantly, my son doesn't. I believe in forgiveness, but I also believe in consequences. What she did wasn't just teenage drama. It was calculated and damaging. Jenna and I are barely speaking right now. She says I've turned our marriage into a hostage situation. I told her, you can't force a broken trust to heal on your timeline. Noah's well-being isn't negotiable. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her emotional support dog to my wedding even though she had a panic attack. My 29F wedding was 2 weeks ago, and it was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, it turned into a massive argument between me and my older sister, Kayla, 32F, that is still ongoing and has now split the family. Let me start by saying that I love animals. My fiancé, now husband, and I have 2 cats. I volunteered at shelters, I donate to rescues, and I have nothing against service or emotional support animals when they're truly necessary. Kayla got her dog, a golden doodle named Tofu, about 18 months ago after she went through a rough breakup and was diagnosed with anxiety and mild depression. She didn't get a licensed service animal, but a therapist signed off on Tofu as an emotional support animal so she could bring him into her apartment, which doesn't normally allow dogs. Fair enough. Since then, Tofu has gone everywhere with her. Restaurants, family events, even a funeral. He's generally well-behaved, though not trained like an actual service dog. At Thanksgiving last year, he stole food off my niece's plate. At her cousin's baby shower, he peed on the gift table. I'm not exaggerating, but Kayla insists she needs him because she has daily panic attacks, and he keeps her grounded. When I sent out wedding invitations, I included a note on the RSVP that the venue does not allow pets, not even Tofu, and we would only be making accommodations for fully trained and registered service animals. My venue was a historical estate that is very strict with rules. It's also expensive, and I had signed a contract stating I'd be financially liable for any damage. Kayla called me the day after she got her invitation and immediately asked if I was really serious about Tofu not coming. I told her I was. I explained the venue rules, the liability, and said I wanted everyone to focus on the celebration, not managing a dog. I also mentioned I'd already talked to my wedding planner about possibly setting up a quiet room for her to step into if she felt overwhelmed, and I was willing to have one of my cousins, a therapist, available if she needed to talk to someone. Kayla said I was being insanely insensitive and accused me of not understanding her mental health needs. She said she'd think about it, and we didn't talk much after that. Fast forward to the wedding day. Kayla showed up with Tofu on a leash. My wedding coordinator pulled me aside 30 minutes before the ceremony and told me there was a guest at the entrance refusing to leave unless her dog was let in. I immediately knew who it was. I left the bridal suite in my damn dress and found Kayla at the front gate crying, with Tofu sitting there panting like he owned the place. She said she was sorry, but she had a panic attack that morning and couldn't come without him. I asked why she didn't tell me or let someone know, and she said she was afraid I'd tell her not to come at all. I was already overwhelmed, but I told her as gently as I could that he couldn't come in, not just for my comfort, but because the venue literally wouldn't allow it. That's when she started screaming at me, not exaggerating, full volume, in front of arriving guests. She said I was choosing a stuffed shirt mansion and social status over my own sister's well-being, that I clearly didn't give a damn about her, and that she hoped I had a panic attack so I'd know what it felt like. My mom tried to intervene, but Kayla eventually stormed off. She didn't come to the ceremony or the reception. The day still went on, and honestly, it was beautiful. But there was this huge shadow over everything. My mom cried during the mother-daughter dance because she felt like she was losing both her girls. My dad said he understood my decision, but I could tell he was disappointed Kayla wasn't there. My aunt told me I should have just made an exception and that it was just one dog. Since then, Kayla has refused to speak to me. She skipped our post-wedding brunch, left the family group chat, and didn't return my thank you card because, quote, there was nothing to thank me for. My mom is begging me to apologize to her to keep the peace, and my dad keeps saying things like, you know she's not well, as though that excuses her actions. My husband is furious and says Kayla tried to hijack our wedding and make it about her. Here's where I might be the asterisk hole. I could have made an exception. I could have worked something out like letting someone watch Tofu just off-site. I know weddings are hard for people with anxiety, and I do feel guilty that she felt so isolated or scared that day. But I also feel like she forced a confrontation on purpose, and that this wasn't about her mental health so much as control. She knew the rules. She brought him anyway. So now I'm left wondering, AITA for not letting her bring her dog, even though she had a panic attack? Did I overreact? Should I have made a bigger effort to accommodate her, even if it meant bending the rules or risking a fine? AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding because of her toxic behavior, even though it's causing a huge family rift? I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Mike, 32M, for about a year now. We're planning our wedding for next summer, and while the process has been mostly smooth, one major issue keeps coming up. My sister, Emily, 27F. Our relationship has been rocky for years, and things have escalated to the point where I don't feel comfortable having her at one of the most important days of my life. I'll try to give some background so you understand where I'm coming from. Emily and I grew up in a pretty normal household, but as we got older, she started showing signs of being very self-centered and manipulative. She often tried to play the victim, even when she was clearly in the wrong, and she would guilt-trip me and our parents over the smallest things. Our parents have always enabled her behavior to some extent, which made it worse. Over the years, Emily and I have had multiple falling outs. One of the worst was about 2 years ago when she spread a false rumor about me at work because she was jealous of a promotion I got. She told some colleagues that I got the job because I was sleeping with the boss, which was completely untrue and hurt my reputation. When I confronted her, she denied it and tried to gaslight me by saying I was overreacting and making things up. That was the last straw for me, and I stopped talking to her for about 6 months. We eventually started communicating again because our parents pushed for a family truce. Since then, things have been tense but manageable. However, when I got engaged, Emily started acting like she was the center of attention again. She made several passive-aggressive comments about the wedding, saying things like, "I hope you're not planning a big deal since you're so simple," or "Don't forget who really threw you that engagement party." The engagement party incident was particularly painful because she threw me a party but made it all about herself, turning it into a spectacle where she was the star, even interrupting the speeches to talk about herself. My fiancé and I have been clear that we want a wedding that feels intimate and genuine, and we want to avoid drama as much as possible. So when it came time to make the guest list, I debated for a long time whether to include Emily. I talked to Mike about it, and he supported me in whatever decision I made because he knows how toxic she can be. Finally, I decided to exclude Emily from the wedding altogether. I told my parents about this decision, and they exploded. They said I was being unfair and cruel, that family should always come first, and that I was overreacting. They pressured me to invite her, saying the wedding would be ruined without her. I stood my ground, explaining that I wasn't willing to risk having her disruptive behavior overshadow our day. When my parents found out, they told Emily, and she blew up on me. She sent me a barrage of texts and voicemails accusing me of betraying her and trying to erase her from my life. She also threatened to go to our extended family and spread lies about me, just like she did at work. My parents are now caught in the middle, frustrated and hurt that their daughter and son are at odds. They keep telling me to make peace and put the family first. My fiancé supports me completely, but the situation has put a real strain on my family relationships. My extended family is divided. Some support my decision, while others think I'm being petty. My friends mostly understand, but some have suggested I should try harder to forgive and forget for the sake of peace. I am genuinely torn. On one hand, I want my wedding to be a happy, drama-free day with people who love and support me. On the other hand, excluding my sister feels harsh and might permanently damage our family bonds. I don't know if I'm the asshole for wanting to protect my peace and my relationship with Mike, or if I'm being unfair by cutting out my sister completely. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding because of her toxic behavior, even though it's causing a huge family rift. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me not to bring my kids, and then made a huge scene when I said no. This has been a mess for months now, and I'm honestly still shocked by how selfish my sister has been. I'm going to try and explain everything clearly because this whole thing is more complicated than it seems at first glance. So, here's the backstory. I, 35F, have 2 kids, ages 4 and 7. My sister, 33F, is getting married in about 2 months. Growing up, we were close, but over the last few years, things have been a little strained mainly because of how she treats my kids. I'll get to that in a minute. When she got engaged, she immediately started planning a small, intimate wedding. We're talking about 40 people max. She has a smaller circle of friends than I do, so this made sense. She told me the venue was small and wouldn't be able to accommodate children, so she was going to make the wedding adults only. I get that, it's her day, and it's reasonable to want that vibe. But the problem started when she specifically told me that she did not want me to bring my kids. I was surprised and asked if there was a childcare option or if she could recommend a babysitter because my kids don't do well with strangers or being away from me. She said no, and that she wasn't going to make special arrangements just for my kids. I was a bit hurt, but decided I'd see if my parents could watch them that day. My parents were happy to do it, so I told my sister that I'd come alone. About 2 weeks ago, she called me and told me she'd changed her mind and now felt like my kids should be there after all. She said it wouldn't be a big deal because there would be a couple of other kids there and that she wanted us all to feel included. But here's the catch. She told me I could bring them only if I paid for their tickets and meals at the venue, which was a sit-down dinner with a fixed price per head. The tickets for adults were expensive, around $150 each, and for kids, they were $75 each. I was annoyed because if the wedding was originally supposed to be adults only and then suddenly the kids were allowed only if I paid extra, that felt like a last-minute attempt to exclude them without saying it outright. I told her that I wasn't comfortable paying that much and that I didn't want my kids to be there in a formal setting they wouldn't enjoy. I also said it felt unfair that she was making me pay for their presence while other guests didn't have to. She blew up on me. She accused me of being selfish, not supporting her, and basically told me I was ruining her wedding. She said it was ridiculous that I wouldn't compromise for one day. She even said that if I didn't bring the kids, I wasn't really family to her. That hurt a lot. I told her I'd rather just skip the wedding than have my kids be unwanted or treated like a burden. She threatened to uninvite me entirely and said I was making this about my kids when the wedding was about her and her fiancé. After that, I decided not to attend. My parents also said they wouldn't go if I didn't, so the entire family dynamic is super tense. Some family members have taken her side, saying she's the bride and can set the rules, while others think she's being unreasonable. I don't want to cause drama, but I feel like my sister is being unfair. I'm not trying to disrupt her day. I just don't want to be in a situation where my kids are explicitly excluded or where I have to pay to include them in something that was originally adults only. I also feel like she's weaponizing the wedding against me because of some past tensions. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she asked me not to bring my kids and then got angry when I said no. Should I just suck it up and go alone, or am I justified in standing my ground here? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay in my house after what he did to my dog. This all started about 6 months ago. I, 29F, live in a pretty decent-sized house on my own, having moved out right after college. I have a dog, a 3-year-old golden retriever named Max, who is basically my baby. Max is super well-trained, very friendly, but also has his boundaries, especially with strangers. My sister, Lisa, 26F, has been dating this guy, Jason, 28M, for about a year now. At first, I liked Jason. He seemed respectful and kind, and they looked happy together. He'd come over occasionally, and everything seemed fine. But over time, I started noticing some things that made me uncomfortable. Jason seemed a bit dismissive of Max, kind of brushing off my request to be careful around him because Max can be skittish. He also had a bit of a temper, but I try to give him the benefit of the doubt since I know dating can be stressful. Then came the incident that changed everything. About 2 months ago, Lisa asked if Jason could stay at my place for a few days while she was out of town for work. She explained that their apartment was being fumigated and that Jason didn't have anyone else to stay with. I hesitated, but eventually agreed because I didn't want to leave them stranded, and Lisa seemed to trust him around Max. The first day, Jason was polite, helped me around the house, and everything seemed fine. But the next morning, I went downstairs and found Max hiding under the dining table, shaking. I called him over, and as soon as he saw me, he whined and tried to get away. That's when I noticed fresh scratches on his neck and legs. I asked Jason about it. He shrugged and said, Max probably got too excited or something. I didn't buy it. Max is not aggressive, and I have never seen him hurt like that before. The following day, I was cleaning the living room when I overheard Jason talking on the phone, saying something like, I don't know why she's so obsessed with that dog. It's just an animal. It felt cold and dismissive, but I kept my cool because I wanted to see how things would go. Then, late that night, I was woken up by loud noises coming from the living room. When I got downstairs, I found Jason yelling at Max, who was cowering in the corner. Jason was frustrated because Max had apparently jumped on the couch while he was watching TV. I immediately told Jason to stop and get away from Max. That morning, I confronted Jason and told him that if he couldn't respect Max and treat him kindly, he couldn't stay in my house. Jason got defensive and said I was being ridiculous because Max was just a dog and I was overreacting. I told Lisa about everything when she returned, and she seemed torn but ultimately sided with Jason, saying that Max could be difficult sometimes and that maybe I was being too harsh. Since then, I have not allowed Jason to stay in my house. Lisa has asked me repeatedly to reconsider, saying Jason feels unwelcome and that I'm making things difficult for them. But I can't get past the way Jason treated Max. He's been coming over less and less, but every time Lisa brings him up, I get frustrated. My parents have also weighed in, saying I should compromise for family's sake, but I feel like I'm being asked to choose between my dog's safety and my sister's relationship, and that's not fair. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house after he hurt my dog? Should I just let it go for the sake of family peace? Or am I justified in protecting Max? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he deliberately broke my priceless family heirloom and then expected me to replace it? I've always been the responsible one in my family. I'm 32, married, and own a home that I take a lot of pride in. My younger sister, 28, has been dating her fiancé, Jake, for about 2 years now. We've never gotten along perfectly, but I've always tried to be civil. Recently, however, things took a serious downturn, and I'm honestly still shocked at how disrespectful Jake was to me and my home. Here's the backstory. My late grandmother left me a beautiful antique vase that has been in our family for generations. It's over 150 years old, made of fine porcelain with intricate hand-painted details, and it's worth well over $5,000. It's not just a valuable item. It's a sentimental piece that reminds me of my grandmother's legacy. I keep it in a safe spot in my living room where everyone can admire it, but not touch it. Last weekend, my sister and Jake came over for a small gathering at our house. My husband was out of town for work, so it was just me, my sister, and Jake. I was running late, so when I got home, the two of them were already there, chatting in the kitchen. I warned them about the vase and reminded them it's fragile and not to touch it. Everything seemed fine until I went to the living room to get a drink, and I found Jake standing there, holding the vase. My heart dropped. I immediately told him to put it down because it was fragile and important to me. He laughed it off, said it was just a vase, and then, right in front of me, he dropped it. The vase shattered into pieces on the floor. I was stunned. I couldn't believe he was so careless. I asked him what he was doing and why he didn't listen. Instead of apologizing, he shrugged and said it was just an old thing and that I could buy a new one if I wanted. I was furious. I told him this wasn't just about the money. It was about respect and understanding what this vase meant to me. He rolled his eyes and said I was overreacting. My sister didn't say much, but looked uncomfortable. I told them both to leave. My sister tried to convince me to calm down and that Jake didn't mean to break it, but I was too upset. Jake then got even more defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and that I should just replace the vase. Over the next couple of days, my sister kept calling me, trying to patch things up. She said Jake felt terrible and wanted to make it right. I told her no amount of money could fix this kind of disrespect. I didn't want him in my home, and I wasn't going to replace something that was irreplaceable. Things escalated when my sister told me she and Jake were planning to stay at my house for a week while their apartment got renovated. She said it would only be temporary, and they'd help out around the house. I flat out refused. I said there was no way I could have Jake in my house after what happened. She accused me of being stubborn and unfair, saying I was punishing her over something Jake did by himself. She also said I was ruining family relationships over an object. I reminded her that respect and boundaries are important, and Jake's behavior crossed the line. Now my sister won't talk to me, and our parents have even weighed in, saying I should just forgive and forget because it was an accident. I feel like they're dismissing my feelings just because it's an heirloom and because Jake is her fiancé. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé stay in my house after he broke my priceless family heirloom and expected me to replace it? Or am I justified in standing my ground about the respect and boundaries in my own home? AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her toddler to my wedding even though she's been struggling with childcare? So, here's the backstory. My 30F, fiancé, 32M, and I have been planning our wedding for over a year now. We're both pretty private people and wanted an intimate ceremony with close family and friends only, which is about 50 people. We decided early on that it would be an adult-only event, mainly because we wanted it to be a calm, relaxed day, without the chaos that sometimes comes with kids. Also, the venue we chose isn't really kid-friendly. Lots of stairs, expensive decor, and no play area. We made it clear on the invitations, and our wedding website that it would be adults only. Now, my sister, 28F, has a 2-year-old toddler. She's a single mom and often mentions how hard it is for her to find childcare. She lives about an hour away from me and doesn't have family close by who can babysit regularly. She asked me a few months ago if she could bring her son to the wedding. I told her honestly that we were going for adults only and that it wouldn't be appropriate for toddlers. She said she understood, but then kept bringing it up whenever we talked. She told me that finding childcare for her son was nearly impossible and that she felt excluded because she's the only one with a kid in our family. She even said that I was putting my wedding before family and that it hurt her feelings. I tried to explain that it wasn't about excluding her specifically, but rather about making the day manageable and enjoyable for everyone. I even offered to help pay for a babysitter for the evening if she wanted to hire someone, or suggested she bring her son to a trusted daycare for the day. She seemed upset but didn't respond. Fast forward to the week before the wedding. My fiancé and I finalized the seating and guest list. My sister texted me out of the blue, saying she really hoped I'd reconsider because she couldn't find anyone to watch her son. She said she didn't want to miss my wedding, but also didn't want to leave her son alone for hours. I again reiterated the adult-only policy and suggested that maybe she could spend the afternoon with her son and then come to the reception after his bedtime, which would be around 8 p.m. The reception would be fairly casual, and some guests were planning to stay late. So I thought it was a reasonable compromise. She got really upset, telling me that expecting her to leave her toddler alone at home for hours was unreasonable and that it wasn't safe. She said she was really struggling and accused me of being selfish. She told me she might not come if her son couldn't come with her. I felt stuck. On one hand, I want my sister to be there and have a good time. On the other, I can't have a toddler running around a formal event where some guests are drinking and where we have fragile decorations and expensive rentals. Plus, it's important to me to keep the atmosphere adult-only for my own peace of mind. The day before the wedding, my sister sent me a long text detailing how overwhelmed she is, how hard it is to find a babysitter she trusts, and how I'm choosing my dream day over her reality. She said she's seriously considering not coming at all. At this point, I told her I love her and that I want her there, but I can't compromise on the no kids rule. I also offered to help her find a professional babysitter or a daycare facility near the venue and offered to cover the cost. She replied with a curt, "I'll think about it," and hasn't said anything else. The wedding happened yesterday. My sister did not show up, and neither did her son. I'm feeling a mix of sadness and frustration. My other family members asked if she was coming, and I explained the situation briefly. Some people think I was too rigid, especially since my sister is a single mom with few options. Others said I was within my rights to set boundaries for my own wedding. I don't regret wanting an adult-only wedding, but I can't shake the feeling that I could have done more to accommodate her situation. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her toddler to my wedding even though she's struggling with childcare. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he called me lazy and irresponsible in front of my family. This whole situation started a few months ago and has spiraled into something I never expected. I'm 28, married, and live with my husband and 2 kids in a modest but comfortable house in a suburban area. My younger sister, 24, is engaged to a guy named Mark. He's about 27 and works in sales. I have to admit, I wasn't too thrilled about Mark when they first started dating because he seemed kind of arrogant and a bit dismissive towards my family, but I wanted to give him a chance. The problem began a couple of months ago when my sister and Mark were visiting for a weekend. They planned to stay with us since they were moving to a nearby city and didn't have their own place yet. I was okay with this initially, since it would only be a few days, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to bond. The first day went fine. Mark was polite enough, but a little cold. The next morning, things took a turn. We were all having breakfast when Mark casually remarked, loud enough for everyone to hear, that I seemed lazy because I don't have a high-powered job and mostly stay home with the kids. My husband works full-time in IT, and I take care of the kids and manage the household, which is a lot of work, but Mark dismissed it as not real responsibility. He also criticized how I spend my time, saying I'm wasting my potential and coasting through life. I was shocked and embarrassed. My sister looked uncomfortable, but no one said anything at first. I tried to brush it off, but Mark kept making snide remarks throughout the weekend about how I should get a real job or stop being so complacent. It was incredibly disrespectful. After that weekend, I told my sister I didn't want Mark staying at our house anymore because his behavior was unacceptable. She was upset and said I was overreacting. She said Mark was just joking and I was being too sensitive. I explained that joking doesn't include calling someone lazy or irresponsible in front of family, especially when it's untrue and hurtful. Fast forward a few weeks, and my sister and Mark were still staying with us, despite my objections. They said they couldn't find an apartment yet, and that it was just temporary. Mark's attitude didn't improve. He was passive-aggressive and dismissive of my efforts to keep the house running smoothly while he lounged around playing video games. One day, Mark started complaining loudly that the house wasn't clean enough, even though I cleaned daily while taking care of the kids. I told him politely that I was doing my best with 2 toddlers and a full schedule. He then snapped at me, calling me irresponsible again and implying I don't care about how the house looks because I'm lazy. This was the last straw. I told my husband, and we agreed that enough was enough. We sat down with my sister and Mark and told them they couldn't stay with us anymore unless Mark apologized and changed his behavior. My sister sided with Mark and accused me of being controlling and unfair. The next day, Mark left with my sister and they found a cheap apartment. But the drama didn't end there. My sister started ignoring my calls and texts, and my parents said I was being too harsh and that I should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. I felt betrayed because I was standing up for myself and my family. I reached out to a few friends, and they said I was right to set boundaries and not tolerate disrespect. But now, my sister refuses to talk to me, and Mark has posted passive-aggressive stuff about me on social media, calling me stuck up and unable to handle criticism. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he repeatedly insulted me and showed no respect. I feel like I was protecting my family and home, but now I'm the one being painted as the villain. What do you think? AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she repeatedly ignored my boundaries and expectations? This is going to be a long one because the whole situation is tangled, and I want to make sure I give enough context for a fair judgment. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up in a middle-class household with parents who were pretty strict and emphasized responsibility and hard work. Growing up, Emily was always the free spirit, very creative, but also impulsive and sometimes irresponsible, especially with money. I, on the other hand, took a more conventional path, finished college, landed a stable job in finance, and have been steadily climbing the corporate ladder. I live in a decent apartment, have some savings, and am generally careful about budgeting. Emily has had a different trajectory. She dropped out of college after 2 years to pursue art full-time. She's talented, no doubt, but art is not exactly a lucrative career, especially starting out. She's had a series of low-paying jobs and gigs, and she's been in and out of financial trouble for years. Our parents helped her a bit when she was younger, but they eventually put their foot down and told her she had to learn to manage her life and money. Now, here's where things get complicated. Over the past 5 years, Emily has repeatedly asked me for financial help. Sometimes small amounts, sometimes more significant. I have helped her before because I wanted to be supportive and didn't want to see her struggle. But each time, there would be some new drama or crisis, and after helping once or twice, I started setting boundaries. I told her I wasn't going to be her safety net anymore and that she needed to figure out how to support herself. She promised she would, and for a while, things seemed okay. But then she'd call again, or I'd overhear her complaining to family about how no one helps her, or how I'm so cold. What frustrates me is that every time she's asked for help, she's never made any significant effort to improve her situation. No steady job, no saving, and she even ignores advice about budgeting or finding more reliable income sources. Recently, things escalated. Emily got herself into a lease for a tiny apartment in an expensive part of the city, a decision I think was wildly irresponsible given her income. I told her multiple times it didn't make sense financially. Predictably, she fell behind on rent and called me in a panic, asking for $1,200 to cover it. I refused and told her to talk to her landlord about payment plans or find a roommate. She got furious and accused me of abandoning her in her time of need and said I don't care about family. She even sent a message to our parents, complaining that I was refusing to help her when she was in crisis. My parents sided with me to an extent, saying they don't want to enable her bad habits, but also urged me to be compassionate. I get that, but I don't want to sacrifice my financial stability because she won't take responsibility for her choices. I offer to help her create a budget and look for better living arrangements, but she's been dismissive. To add to the drama, Emily has a history of borrowing money and not paying it back. I lent her $500 last year, which she never returned or even discussed. She also tends to spend money on things like eating out and trendy clothes, which she defends as treating herself despite being broke. A few days ago, she showed up unannounced at my place, demanding to talk about the rent money. I told her I wasn't going to give her the money and that this wasn't a negotiation. She got angry, stormed out, and hasn't spoken to me since. Our parents have asked me to reach out and try to mend things, but I'm hesitant because I don't want to be dragged back into this cycle. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister financially, especially when she's in a tough spot, or am I justified in setting boundaries given her history and choices? I'm open to hearing different perspectives because I know family dynamics are complicated. But I do want to stress that this isn't just about money. It's about responsibility, trust, and respect for boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my mental health struggles. This has been a difficult story for me to tell, but I really need an outside perspective because I'm starting to doubt myself. I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 30F, who's been my closest family member for most of my life. We grew up pretty close, but over the past few years, things have gotten tense, and it all centers around my mental health and her wedding. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after a really tough period. It was a huge shock to me and my family. At first, Emily was supportive in a surface-level way. She said all the right things and even came with me to some therapy sessions. But as time went on, I noticed that she started to pull away emotionally. When I was going through episodes, she'd either get annoyed or treat me like I was exaggerating things for attention. One example that still stings is from about a year ago. I had a severe depressive episode and ended up in the hospital for a week. Emily barely visited me. When she did come, she told me that my condition was draining and that I needed to get a grip if I wanted to have any sort of normal life. She also said she felt embarrassed when I talked about my struggles around her friends or family. I was devastated, but tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she didn't fully understand. Fast forward to this year, Emily got engaged and started planning her wedding. I was honestly excited for her and wanted to support her, despite the distance I felt growing between us. But the way she handled it really hurt me. Right from the start, she excluded me from the planning process. She didn't ask for my opinion or even mention me in conversations about bridesmaids or events leading up to the wedding. I tried to talk to her about it, telling her I wanted to be involved because family is important to me and I wanted to show up for her. She responded coldly, saying she was too busy and that the wedding was about her and her fiancé, not about my issues. I felt crushed because it sounded like she was blaming my mental health for her decisions. Things escalated when I found out through another family member that Emily told people I was unreliable and too unstable to be trusted with wedding duties. I wasn't invited to the bridal shower or the bachelorette party, and even some of the cousins and friends I thought were close to me were invited, but I wasn't. The final blow was when she told me she didn't want me to attend the rehearsal dinner because she was worried I might cause a scene or get overwhelmed. I reached out to Emily one last time, trying to explain how hurt I was and asking for a chance to be part of her big day. She said she wanted me there, but only if I promised to keep it together and not make it about my mental health. I felt like she didn't really want me there. She wanted a version of me that was easier to manage. After a lot of soul searching and talking to my therapist, I decided I couldn't attend the wedding. I sent her a message explaining that I felt too disrespected and excluded, and that being around her and her friends under those conditions would be harmful to my mental health. I said I hoped she'd understand someday, but I couldn't put myself through that. My parents and other family members are split on this. Some say I'm justified for protecting myself, while others think I'm overreacting and missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime event. Emily hasn't spoken to me since I sent the message, and I've been blocked on social media. The silence is really painful. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my mental health struggles. I'm torn between wanting to keep peace and needing to protect myself emotionally. I just don't know what the right call is anymore. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the guest list drama that spiraled out of control. I, 32F, come from a pretty tight-knit family, or at least I thought we did, until this whole wedding fiasco started. My younger sister, Emily, 29F, got engaged about a year ago, and since then, things have been complicated. Emily is someone who's always been a bit dramatic, but she's also extremely particular about her social circle. She has a small group of close friends, but also a lot of acquaintances and a handful of old friends from high school she tries to keep in touch with. When she announced her engagement, I was genuinely happy for her, but I also expected some typical family excitement and maybe some planning chaos. What I didn't expect was the amount of stress the guest list would cause. To give some context, Emily and I were raised in a small town, and our family is quite large on both sides. We have plenty of cousins, aunts, uncles, and childhood friends who we still see regularly. I always assumed the wedding would be a big, family-centered event, with close friends sprinkled in. But Emily insisted on keeping the wedding intimate, which she defined as inviting only her closest friends, a few family members, and no one else. The problem started when she began sending out the invites. She invited all her best friends, including a few who I've never met or even heard of before. At first, I thought it was just her style, but then she started excluding family members without telling anyone. She didn't invite my parents or her grandparents, our parents and grandparents. When I confronted her, she told me it was her wedding and that she had the right to choose who she wanted there. I tried to reason with her, explaining how hurtful it was for everyone, especially our parents and grandparents, who have supported her throughout her life. Emily said they could come to the reception afterward, which was a separate, much smaller gathering, but she wanted the ceremony to be just her people. At this point, I was already feeling pretty uncomfortable, but the real kicker came when she sent me my invite. It was addressed only to me, no +1, and the RSVP was clear that she didn't want me bringing anyone else. I'm currently in a serious relationship with Jason, 35M, and we've been together for over 2 years. Jason and I were both excited about the wedding and have been planning our trip to her city for months. I reached out to Emily to ask if Jason could come as my +1, hoping she'd understand that it's important for me to bring my partner to family events. Emily's response was cold and firm. No +1s allowed unless you're married or engaged to the guest of honor or part of the bridal party. She said she didn't want the wedding to be overcrowded and that she was trying to keep things manageable. Feeling hurt and frustrated, I told her that I couldn't attend if Jason wasn't allowed to come with me. To me, weddings are celebrations meant to include loved ones, and I didn't want to go alone when I had someone important to share the experience with. Emily got upset and accused me of making the wedding about myself, that I was being selfish and inconsiderate. She said if Jason wasn't invited, it was her right, and I needed to respect that. We argued back and forth for a couple of weeks, with no resolution. Emily started posting cryptic statuses on social media about people who don't support her and family drama ruining the day, which made the situation more tense. Our parents tried to mediate, but ended up caught in the middle, feeling torn between both of us. Eventually, I told Emily I wouldn't attend the ceremony if Jason wasn't invited. She replied by uninviting me altogether, saying if I couldn't respect her wishes, I was not welcome. I was shocked and hurt. I felt like she was punishing me for wanting to share a meaningful life event with my partner. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, there was almost no communication between us. Emily's wedding day came and went without me, but the fallout has been ongoing. Our parents are upset. Emily's relationship with the family feels strained, and I'm left wondering if I did the right thing. Some friends have told me I should have just gone alone to support my sister, while others say Emily's being unreasonable and that it's my right to bring my partner. I'm honestly confused and hurt by the whole thing. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she wouldn't allow my boyfriend to come? Or is Emily being unfair and selfish? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the bridal party and then demanded I pay for part of it? This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 29F, have always been pretty close with my sister, 32F, or at least I thought so until recently. We grew up in a small town, and for most of our lives, we were inseparable. We shared friends, family events, even hobbies. I was genuinely excited when she got engaged last year, and I was looking forward to being a big part of her wedding. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. When my sister got engaged, she announced it at a family dinner. She had already started planning, and I was happy to hear she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. We talked about dresses, colors, and the whole 9 yards. I was honored and excited. But then things started to get weird. A few weeks later, my sister called me and said she had to make some changes. She had decided to cut the bridal party down because her fiancé's family was large, and it was getting complicated. I understood that to some extent, but what she told me next felt like a punch in the gut. She said she was removing me from the bridesmaids list, but was still expecting me to attend and support her on the day of. Fair enough, I thought. Maybe it's a logistical thing. Then, she dropped the bomb that she wanted me to contribute $800 toward the wedding costs. I was floored. I don't come from a wealthy family. I have a steady job, but $800 is a lot for me. I asked her what exactly that money would cover, and she said it was to help with the dress alterations, bridal shower expenses, and some of the reception costs. I told her I wasn't comfortable paying that much, especially since I wasn't even in the bridal party. Things escalated from there. She accused me of being selfish and not wanting to support her big day. She said family should chip in to make the wedding perfect. I told her that I was happy to celebrate with her, but didn't think I should be financially responsible for parts of the event I wasn't involved in. She then said if I wasn't willing to pay, maybe I shouldn't come to the wedding at all. At this point, I was really hurt and confused. I tried to explain that family support doesn't always mean money. I've always helped out when I could, emotionally and practically, but I'm not made of money. I suggested alternative ways to help, like assisting with decorations or planning, but she wasn't interested. The situation came to a head when she sent me a group message with our parents and other siblings, basically making me look like the bad guy for refusing to pay and accusing me of not caring about family. My parents urged me to reconsider and just pay to keep the peace, but I felt cornered. I finally told her I wouldn't be attending the wedding if she expected me to pay and wasn't willing to treat me like family. She responded by calling me immature and selfish, saying she wished I could be more supportive. My friends are divided. Some say I should have swallowed my pride and paid the $800 to keep the peace, especially since it's a once-in-a-lifetime event for my sister. Others say my sister is being unreasonable by expecting financial support and treating me like an accessory rather than family. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to pay for and attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the bridal party and demanded money from me? Or is she in the wrong for treating me this way? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.